All right, this week on Lip Gloss and Ladders, the ladies delve into the rise and fall of Vince McMahon. During our conversation, we'll be discussing various topics that may be triggering to some of our viewers. Um, Triggers include sexual assault and trafficking, grooming and pedophilia, suicide and self harm, workplace harassment, and bullying. Also, drug use. So I know that this is a sensitive topic for you guys, so I just want everybody to take care of yourselves. And if this is not the episode for you, we completely understand. All right, let's get into it. My name is Reese. I'm joined here by my lovely co-host, Gabby. How are you feeling?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Ash, how are you feeling?
Good, can't complain.
KB, how are you guys feeling? How you feeling? You know,
I'm
big.
good as well. Big is making a minor appearance, probably.
Maybe a little ear here and there, you know?
Love that. Right, Love you're that. picking up. We love a cameo.
Love a cameo. All right. So, like I said, I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about Vince McMahon, the name that is synonymous with professional wrestling. He's been labeled as the most influential person in the wrestling world. He's been labeled a wrestling genius. He is responsible for the WWE as we know it and for making wrestling a multi-billion-dollar industry from a little niche territory based fun thing to a worldwide conglomerate. However, a couple of years ago, his life came crashing down when numerous terrible allegations came out about the founder of WWE. So before we get into that and how it came crashing down, let's talk about a little bit about how he built it up. All right. So during the 1980s, again, it was a territory based wrestling promotion. It was called the Golden Era of Wrestling. It was governed by the National Wrestling Alliance, as we know, the NWA, like classic wrestling. Vince felt that wrestling, though, should be national and under control of one company. So after buying WWF from his father in 1982, while he was sick, Vince set out to monopolize the wrestling world and give us what we now know. Now, during that time, there were two major time slots for wrestling in all of the US: USA Network and Ted Turner's network, TTBS. During that time, Georgia Championship Wrestling was they had a show on Sunday mornings um, called World Championship Wrestling. Remember that name, guys? I know we all know that name. In 1984, Vince joined forces with the Briscoes and Jim Barnett. Jim Barnett is a pivotal figure in the wrestling world. He was the Vince McMahon before Vince McMahon. Are you guys familiar with Jim Barnett?
So I am. I know a little bit about him, not a lot, because
Mhm.
he didn't stick around too long.
He did not. He stuck around in a backstage capacity. He
Hmm.
was known as the guy. During that time with Georgia Championship Wrestling, Jim Barnett had been allegedly embezzling money and was ousted by Georgia Championship Wrestling. Vince McMahon saw that as an opportunity. Said, "Hey Jim, hey Briscoes, I need this time slot. Sell your shares to me." They were majority shareholders. Uh, on July 14th, 1984, on what will be known as Black Saturday, Vince McMahon took over Georgia Championship Wrestling and their time slot, and he solidified his
It's the beginning
monopolization.
of the era, man. It's the beginning of the
he,
era.
he got it, he got his hands on it, he took it. During this gave him the reputation of being a sleazy businessman. No one wanted to touch him with a 10-foot pole.
Hmm.
He resigned from the National Wrestling Alliance, and there he would have the monopoly on wrestling. Obviously, we know until a decade later, we're the resurgence of WCW programming came and the Monday Night War started. Now, taking his reputation as this greedy, sleazy businessman, Vince solidified that in his on screen persona. And during that time, again, like I said, there was a decade of him just living lavishly, him living the life. He was pro wrestling. WCW resurged again in 1995. As we know, the Monday Night Wars began. And that's when the Attitude Era started. So I know the Attitude Era has been praised as many of our wrestling fans
Mm-hmm.
favorite era of wrestling is called. That's WWE's golden era of wrestling. But he created that in direct competition with WCW. That's when we got the edgy on-screen characters. We got the nude
I'm gonna say that's
entertainment.
when this shit started. That's when the mess
That's
began. Like,
that's when the
oof.
boys
Yeah.
club started. That is when the
Mm-hmm.
boys club started. Like, wow, yes, the Attitude Era has given us some great talent. Stone Cold Steve Austin,
Mm-hmm.
The Rock, The Guns, DX. It's also been said to be some of the darkest times in WWE history,
Especially for the women.
Yep. Yeah.
especially for the women. Now, again, art imitates life. Vince McMahon has a reputation of being a overconfident, vindictive boss. Now, I think most notably, our first example of this, our Montreal Screwjob. We all know it. Bret Hart said, "Hey, pay me. I'm not happy. I'm taking my talents elsewhere." Vince said, "Not on my watch." And we know screwed him out of his title during him versus Shawn Michaels. That is when the Attitude Era truly began, and the war was on and heated up. And that was
Yo,
also,
and the
oh,
craziest
go
thing
ahead.
about it is that like he for the longest time pretended like he had nothing to do with the screw job. It was all just
Hmm.
random, like it just happened. He didn't plan it. Life was life, and like how long did it take for him to come out and say that like that was a thing? Like we all knew it was a thing, but like no one ever admitted that the Montreal Screwjob was like a predetermined secret. Like everyone knows about the backstage, the fight he had with Brett, like
Hmm.
all of the things with Shawn Michaels. Like it took forever for him to like admit like that was a
Admit it.
thing.
Because that kind of essentially ended kayfabe in the public eye. Because we were
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
hey, that didn't happen. Now, again, speaking of kayfabe, most notably being punished behind the scenes for breaking kayfabe, the curtain call. His own
Mm-hmm.
son-in-law, Triple H. He wasn't his
Oh,
son-in-law
whoo,
at the
baby.
time, but Triple H. I was a WCW girl.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine my surprise when I turned on the TV after Chris Jericho came over in '99, and I'm like, Triple H, he has TV time. He's a big deal here
Mm-hmm.
because Terra Rising was notably punished for his his mistake of that curtain call after Scott Hall, X Pac, and Kevin Nash left.
Mm-hmm. But also, like, had we not gotten that moment, would Stone Cold be as big as Stone Cold? Because Stone Cold is the one who took that spot. So, like,
That is
it's a
true.
double edged
Right.
sword, right? So, like, do I think
Yeah.
that with Stone Cold's personality that he would have eventually gotten his shine? Absolutely. But would it have been, like, the timing of it? Like, that's also kind of blows my
Yes.
mind as well. Like,
But with stunning Steve Austin
exactly.
be
Yeah.
put in that, no, you're 100% right on that. I definitely agree with that.
But then you also have to
Another,
kind of look at, I'm sorry,
oh, you're
people
good.
who came over from WCW who willingly came over got that push. People who did not willingly come over, like DDP, never got that push because he didn't
Mhm.
willingly come over. Like people that were happy, like Booker T was like, whatever, if you pay me, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do whatever you need to do. But like a lot of people from
Reward.
WCW did not get the push because they did not happily come over and were like willing to jump in and do what needed to get done. A lot of people were like, did not want to come over.
Yeah, they came over literally kicking and screaming.
And their booking showed.
Again, some now on again double-edged sword because
Mm-hmm.
with WCW and the NWO takeover, things of that nature, they were like, you know what? I'm coming. Of course, Chris Jericho comes over. Of course, Eddie Guerrero comes over. Of course, Perry Saturn comes over because the smaller guys weren't getting that push. Vince is like, hey, again, that business mind of Vince
Mm-hmm.
McMahon. I can get them over here because that's how he took over the first time. He signed Hulk Hogan. Hey, I'm gonna get your biggest star. He brings over Roddy Piper. I'm gonna get your biggest star. I'm gonna bring over Harley Race. I'm gonna bring
Mm-hmm.
over. I think Bobby the Brain was one of the
Mm-hmm.
first people to come over here.
Yep.
And he's like, okay, this worked the first time. It's gonna work again, and it worked again for his takeover with WCW. Um, then we also have one that is probably really niche, but the Brawl for All, a shoot fight competition
The one and only.
where
Only happened once, y'all. If you missed it, you
it will
blinked, you
never
missed
happen
it.
again.
You blinked, you missed it. You blinked.
If you yes, the Brawl for All, a shoot fight. Bart Gunn, most notably, was knocked out by Butterbean in this brawl. Brutally knocked out by
No, like he
Butterbean
was
in this
knocked
brawl.
out. Like,
He was gone.
yeah.
Um, and this was it is alleged that it was punishment for him signing with All Japan Pro Wrestling while still under contract with WWE. And he said, "I'll come back and finish out my contract, but All Japan is offering me this. I'll come back, finish out my contract." He came back, finished out his contract, then said, "I got something for you," allegedly.
Parting gift for
And
you, buddy.
I have a parting gift for you. And most notably, also the people that competed in the Brawl for All notably are not doing well. For instance, Draws was paralyzed.
Yes.
Um, there have been numerous amounts of public humiliation, especially. I'm not going to say my favorite because it's not by any
Right.
means. Looking at it now from the scope of lens, the Vince McMahon Kiss My Ass Club.
Mm-hmm.
If that is not a glaring, like,
Abuse of
I,
power.
I,
Definitely abuse of power.
I don't know what it is. Alleged. I a lot of wrestlers have come out and said that they were not happy about that. Most notably, Trish Stratus was a part of the Miss McMahon Kiss My Ass Club where he got her to
Mm-hmm.
bark like a dog and just various amounts of I own these people.
Mm-hmm. You will do what I say when I say do it, and if that includes barking like a dog,
You
It
will bark
you will
like a
super
bark.
dog.
Mm-hmm.
with this, looking
Sick
back on
man.
The Vince McMahon Club, it was clear to me, in my opinion, Vince said, "This is my show. These are my puppets.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to fall in line, or you're going to cause static, and then we're not going to hear from you again."
Ever.
Um, ever.
Enjoy the catering.
Man. Man, oh man.
This time, the Attitude Era at this time was also notably known for the over sexualization of the divas and the women signed to WWE. Hot lesbian action being the main event of a Raw,
Yeah.
hiring two women from a beer commercial to kiss and kind of cater to that boys club of we know why the women are here. They're here to be seen and not heard. Um, and to make sure that they're seen, we're going to put them in their underwear.
Mm-hmm. The good old bra and panty matches.
Right.
Or them wrestling in like jello and pudding and random like kiddie pools.
Mud.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
mud
Evening gown.
wrestling.
You gotta get stripped from your evening gown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the entire coining of puppies and stuff like that. Oof. Oof.
Yeah.
Oof. Oof.
Oh, Jerry.
The
Oh,
sad
Jerry the
part about
King.
it is some of these women were previously trained as wrestlers. They came over
Mm-hmm.
with opportunities to wrestle, but they got put in these type of matches.
I always think
Yeah.
about Jacqueline because like she actually can wrestle, but it's
Hmm.
hard to look at her career overall as a whole without including that period of her life. And it's so unfortunate that everyone knows her for the red bikini and not the
That
fact that she gets busy in the ring. Like that's so unfortunate. I see that now, like people are starting to recognize that now, but it's just hard to talk about her without mentioning, even if for a blip, that whole period of the bra and panty match and parading around half naked, and you got Sable and her the bikini contest and like the paint on top, and it's just like, oh, it's just so, as a woman, it's just ugh.
Yeah.
To, yeah. So while we're not going to discount that some of the women did feel
Mm,
that they consented and they felt like this it for me this is what I enjoy doing, and that is 100%
mm,
um their prerogative, and that's fine, their experience. But it was no we can notice and we can tell that it was brawn in the ring was not valued over beauty and sex appeal.
mm-hmm.
Because you have Luna Vachon was there at
Just
that
gonna say
time, but
her.
I don't. Again, if you like, it's blink, you miss her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you had at this time it made the switch from serious women competitors to, hey, I know that you're a manager. Here, I'm gonna put the title on you, or people that were signed just to be there for the quote unquote arm candy and were happy in that role. They were pushed to the top because they wanted to put their championship on women that had that sex appeal that could bring in that male audience, that male gaze. Because we're we're the attitude era. We're attitude. You can't get that over there on TV. They have more restrictions than we do. Like you have us. We're putting up the middle finger. We have women flashing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, show your puppies. We're cursing. We're obscene. We're spraying poop on people. Like that's where it came, including the women, and a lot of the storylines were centered around ownership of the women. If a woman was in the storyline, it was same, not the same thing. I'm not going to say that, but I will say I can give credit where credit is due.
Mm-hmm.
Woman debuts with her boyfriend. She's beautiful. Everybody thinks she's hot. Everybody's like, take it off. Take off your shirt. She's like, take off my shirt. Guy's like, no, you belong to me. We're not, you can't take your shirt off. Then we go into a story of how she gets her liberation from this person so she can be free and wear bikinis and show
Yeah, free to
skin
wear
because
bikini.
she
Yeah,
couldn't
that's
do that.
freedom.
Right. So she couldn't do that when she was with said
Whomever.
like
Mm-hmm.
managing her boyfriend. That's normally the storyline. That's how it goes. That's how it happened with Sable. That's how it happened with everyone.
and some women debuted actually as Godfather's hoes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Victoria.
Ivory, Lita.
Yep. Ivory,
Oof.
Lita. Who else? The the Bellas also.
Really?
Surprisingly.
Really? I didn't know that.
They didn't debut as him, but for a moment when they pushed him to the side, like they
Oh
Godfather
yeah.
was having a
Mm.
bunch of debuts, so they had to parade and be, yeah. Stacy Keibler, I think, as well.
Oh yeah, she definitely was one. I remember her.
Again, as art imitates life, the over sexualization of the women did leak backstage. Now I'm going to stop it here. I'm going to give yet another trigger warning. We're going to delve into some of the allegations made against Vince McMahon. These allegations do include sexual assault and trafficking, grooming and pedophilia, suicide and self harm, and workplace harassment and bullying. If you guys are triggered by any of those topics, you can end it here. We thank you so much for listening so far. Now, with that being said, let's get into it. All right. This it gets icky. I gotta just say.
And just for the
All
record,
right.
I know that it can be hard to listen to, but like it's also hard as for us to have this discussion. So if you can
Yes.
see it in our faces when
Absolutely.
you're watching YouTube and we look uncomfortable, it's because honestly we are.
We are.
So
Facts.
it's hard for us to discuss, as I know it can be hard to listen as well. So give us some grace as we kind of navigate our way through these conversations, please.
Yes. And just as those trigger warnings apply to our viewers, they apply to us. Again, we are women and we stand with victims. And all right. 1992. Vince was accused of turning a blind eye to accusations of Pat Patterson. And if you guys know who Pat Patterson is, he is one of the first openly gay wrestlers of all time in the 70s. Fun fact, also Jim Barnett was as well one of the first openly gay people in the wrestling industry. But Pat Patterson, Terry Garvin, and announcer and ring crew chief Mel Phillips. They were allegedly using their positions of power to engage in couch culture with male wrestlers. And it was also alleged that Mel Phillips used his job as the ring crew announcer to groom underage boys that he brought in as day laborers, to take down the ring, to set up the ring. And allegedly, he used that as a way to say, hey, you're saving some money here if we bring them in. They want to learn the business, they want to wrestle. We can do that. They can't join until they're 18, so we can have them on the road as our crew. Now, all three men did resign after these allegations were founded. Now, a unearthed memo from the FBI from September 1993 states that there was video evidence to contain the acts that they were accused of. Now, WWE is said to allegedly have received this video in 1992. So they were aware of this matter, according to the FBI,
FBI don't
allegedly.
miss, allegedly. So if FBI says it exists, I'm well inclined. I'm 99.9% sure it exists. Let's just put that
Yes,
out there. FBI don't miss when they bring stuff up.
Right.
yes.
AI wasn't a thing
However,
back then. You can't blame
y-
it.
and again, video evidence. There also have been numerous wrestlers that have came out
hmm
claims against Pat Patterson, stating, "Yes, I have seen Pat Patterson grope these underage children. I have seen him engage in this activities with newer wrestlers trying to make it into the business." Those claims, again, are claims, alleged, and have been said to be buried by the WWE. Um, this Now with this recording that WWE did receive in 1992, however, was dismissed, and I'm going to read exactly what it says because, in their view, had too many alternate explanations because it happened in a public setting being recorded. So that was thrown out. Now, again, like I said, all three men did resign. Mel Phillips had a brief stint as a wrestling, I think it was a wrestling promoter, and it doesn't matter, in 1997. And then he disappeared.
Mhm.
Good. Um, good. Now I said all three men resigned. However, Pat Patterson was hired back and actually continued to work for WWE until his death
Mhm.
in 2020.
And is highly regarded to some.
And is highly regarded as a legend backstage.
Mhm. For NXT.
Order to, yep. So now I do want to take the time here and say if you or someone you may know may be the victim of child abuse, please call the ChildHelp National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800 422 4453. Again, we'll have a link to all these resources down below in our description. So feel free to take a look at that resource. We also will have a list of media you can consume to read up on this as well for yourself. I am including the interview from one of the Ring Boys. I won't quote it here because it's already a little heavy, so I won't quote it here, but I will link it if anyone is interested in reading that. Okay. Now, 1992 was also the time of the big steroid boom and Vince being accused of knowing about steroids and not that. Now, that was overshadowed because in 1992 on the Geraldo Rivera show, Reader Chatterton, a former referee from WWE, alleged that on July 16th, 1986, Vince McMahon tried to force her to engage with her in his limousine. I'm not going to say what he tried to do for sensitivity purposes. And when she refused, he assaulted her, then said that she was fraternizing with her coworkers, enacted a rule against that, and fired her. She alleged this on his show, which um, led to Vince attempting to sue Chariton and Geraldo's team for defamation, but the suit was then dropped. In December of 2022, she was able to file a lawsuit and she settled for an undisclosed amount that is said to be in the among the multi-million dollar range because of the statute of limitations and because her initial claims were buried.
Think about
That's
how much
one.
money that was back in the day, though. Like, that's a couple $1 million right now.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine, like, how much that's truly worth back in the day. That's how much she was willing to
Yeah.
pay for it to
Yep.
go away. Like, it's probably like, say I'm making this number up. Say it's 2 million. That's probably like 5 million now. So, and back in the day, a couple
Awesome.
millions weren't that easily accessible as it is now. We'll say that too.
I do have what is said to be the dollar amount
Mhm.
of 11 million. But that was in December of 2022. So she has two lawsuits
Mhm.
that
Wow.
she deserves
That is
more
a
than
lot.
that. She deserves a lot more than that. She
Facts.
deserves
Facts.
to see if she deserves to see her alleged abusers under the jail. So in 2006, Royal Rumble weekend, a clerk from a tanning salon that Vince McMahon frequents filed a police report alleging that McMahon showed her new photos of himself unprompted and forcibly groped her and stating allegedly that he just wanted to have some fun. She did call the police right away. Um, Linda McMahon since came out stating that the claims were unfounded and never happened. Um, it said that she also settled. 2016
Hmm.
CTE clash action lawsuit 51 retired wrestlers accused WWE of hiding the long term effects of neurological injuries and failing to provide care for wrestlers' repetitive head injuries. Now, you guys know what CTE is. It is a concussion disorder you get when you take a lot of un like chair shots to the head, any
Head injuries in general.
head injuries in
Yeah.
general. And of course, when you're in the WWE in the Attitude Era, there were a lot of unprotected chair shots to the head, a lot of kendo sticks, a lot of
Hmm.
weaponry, a lot of hardcore matches back in the day. And most notably, there is a wrestler who is said to have had CTE and committed a heinous act. And that was also a part of that cover up, stating that WWE was aware of this person's percussion protocols. So that was fun. And again, failing to provide care, we know most notably WWE got health insurance in 2023
That's a
after
long
being
time to get health insurance.
after being a company for almost 100 years at this point.
Literally.
Right.
At this point, almost 100 years, they just got health insurance because wrestlers were independent contractors. So
I had to
you had
provide
to
their
pay.
own. And health insurance. I Health insurance these days for the average person who works in an office is ridiculous. I'm sure the health insurance for a professional wrestler is.
Oh my God.
I can't imagine how much they're paying.
I, I,
Rehab? Oh my God.
well,
Absolutely.
most notably, WWE does, however, pay for rehab of all former employees. So drug rehab, drug and rehabilitation rehab.
Oh, okay, okay,
So
okay.
if you were under WWE, you get free drug services, but you break your leg, you're on your own, buddy.
Got you for the cocaine, but that ankle
Like,
injury, you're on your own. What?
Yeah.
And I'm not
yeah, I
knocking.
know.
I'm not
Yeah.
knocking it. I'm not knocking it.
No, we'll
But
get you rehab for the pill dependency that you have
that we
because
probably gave it to you.
We
because
probably
you
have a
broke your
played a
leg.
part in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you broke your leg, but paying for you to actually get the help that the medical help that you need, you got too much dip on your chip, and they don't pay for plane tickets. I heard,
No,
but
they
I don't
don't.
know if they do now.
They don't do
So
travel.
for a traveling company, that's a little bit of those
Yeesh.
shady dealings. One of those retired wrestlers is Ashley Mazzaro. I am going to give one more trigger warning for self harm and suicide, topics of self harm and suicide, and sexual assault. All right, Ashley Mazzaro was a Diva Search winner. She was one of my favorite divas. Looking back at some of her old matches, she did the best she could, and we love
Hmm.
that. And I just want to take time to give her her flowers that she came at a time where she looked different from the original divas, and fans really connected with her. I was one of the fans that connected with her. I voted for her
Hmm.
on the Diva search.
Same.
I was a Ashley girl, so I just want to take the time to give her her flowers before we get into the allegations she made against Vince McMahon and her tragic ending. All right. Ashley alleges that she was sexually assaulted at a U.S. military base in Kuwait during tribute to the troops by a man posing as a doctor, and that WWE apologized to her for the incident and convinced her to not press charges. In 2018, before her passing, she dismissed her lawsuit. WWE claims that she wrote them an email expressing regret for her lawsuit. And this 10 days before her 40th birthday, Ashley Mazzaro passed away, unfortunately, due to suicide. After her death, an affidavit by Mazzaro describing the sexual abuse allegations in detail was released by her law firm. WWE executives denied knowing the full scope of the claims. However, Johnny Laurinaitis' lawyer in 2022, in defense of Johnny Laurinaitis, stated that um, the WWE was aware of the claims and it was handled to the best of their ability. Allegedly, to the best of their ability.
What does that even mean? Like, I mean, I know that's
Yeah.
not a question you all can answer, right? But just throwing it out there, like, what is to the best of our ability?
They
Such a
looked
cop
at it.
out answer. Such a cop out answer.
Yeah.
They read it and they read it.
Mhm.
That's what best of
What
their
that means. Yeah,
ability
that's essentially what that means. Right.
essentially means to me. But during that time, Ashley Mazzaro also accused Vince McMahon of sabotaging her career after she rejected multiple advances. This claim was backed up by her ex-boyfriend, who was her boyfriend at the time of her stay in WWE, Paul London, who states that Vince McMahon incessantly tried to make sexual advances at Ashley Mazzaro. Um, like I said, Ashley did struggle and ultimately lost her life um, from her struggles. Now, if you or anyone you know is having suicidal thoughts, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline by just simply dialing 988. Or you can call 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. All right. Now I want to do a check in with you guys. How are we feeling? Like I said, this
Gross.
is a gross.
Gross.
Same.
Yeah, it's just so
Yeah.
disheartening. Just because, especially since like a lot of these women we look up to, a lot of these women we watch, a lot of these women we have conversations about these women week to week. So to know that a lot of them unfortunately went through a lot of things that you just shouldn't go through at a workplace.
Mhm.
It's just so sad. It's just so sad
Absolutely.
and upsetting.
However, I
100%.
guess you can say I don't want to say it's the good thing because it's not a good thing that these things have come to light. Um, we all heard rumblings of these things, and now we're all kind of seeing that they were not just rumblings. This
Yeah.
allegedly happened. Especially now with everything that has happened recently, and we'll get there shortly. Um, these stories are coming out and people are believing the survivors, and I can appreciate believing and supporting survivors because as you see back in the day it was like, yeah, whatever, didn't happen, we did the best we
Like,
could with what we do. Like, it was just very much blown off and on
yes.
to the next thing.
Definitely was
Right.
blown off because with the ref situation, I remember just her being asked, "Why are you just coming forward now?" It's just like those type of questions just make people not want to come forward. It's just
Hmm.
very,
Yeah.
very sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's very victim
Or
shaming.
Very.
Hmm.
100%. Or using, like, why are you just coming out now? Well, because I can't go against a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate and their team of million-dollar lawyers.
Hmm.
That's
Hello.
why NDAs are signed, settlements were given, and even if it wasn't brushed off, like, oh, this person smacked me on the butt. Oh, he just did a tushy smack. That's how it used to be. Like, it was
It's
like, oh,
locker
just
room. It's
smack.
locker room.
Yeah.
It's it's a good old boys club. It's a locker room, and it's dismissed because, especially from the WWE, who does the over sexualization of women, and these women are in bra and panties matches, and it's that sense of implied consent
Hmm.
where
Bingo.
wrestlers are
Bingo.
or yeah, like, oh, you pose for Playboy, so be nude now on TV.
Yeah, so I'm now entitled to you at
Yes,
all times.
Exactly. And no, that's not it. Like,
making wrestlers who are uncomfortable, even guys, do a live sex celebration where you have to be naked.
Ugh.
or you
On
get
that.
fired.
Like, it's 9 p.m. Like, on regular cable TV. It is a
It's Monday
school
night.
night.
Hmm.
Yeah, like come on now, like
And
Kids
I
were in the audience. Like,
exactly. Kids were in the, and this was way after the. This was what? This is before ruthless aggression. Not
Mhm.
even right before ruthless aggression.
Mhm.
And it's like again, it's that implied consent. Like, oh, I saw Sable in Playboy, or I saw Candace Michelle in Playboy, so I can go up and smack her on the butt. No, you can't do that. Like, you can't. No, this just because this is her career, or she chooses to meet somewhere where she is scantily clad, that does not give you now the right to her body. And again, with WWE, a lot of those storylines were centered towards the ownership of women, and that is it feels gross. It was felt gross then, but it feels grosser now.
It does.
Now, I like to get into what I call the beginning of the end. All right. On June 15th, 2022, I think we all remember where we were when this news broke. The news broke of WWE's board of directors using an independent law firm to investigate $3 million settlement that Vince McMahon paid to an employee. The investigation started after the board got a series of anonymous emails from a woman claiming to be the friend of a woman who worked for WWE as a paralegal. In the email, it alleges that the employee got a 100% raise after getting into a sexual relationship with Vince McMahon. The investigation also turned up three other settlements to three former employees of WWE. I will not state who, I'm not going to speculate on names. I'm not going to state who the names are. I'm not going to say any of that, but I am going to describe it. Number one, a former wrestler who alleged that Mr. McMahon coerced her into giving him oral sex, and then he demoted her and then declined to renew her contract in 2005. A woman described as a contractor with WWE was presented with new photos of McMahon that he said he sent her. Seems like a pattern here.
Mhm.
While accusing him of sexual harassment. This resulted in a $1 million settlement in 2008. A different woman, described as a former manager in the corporate sense, so not an on screen manager, but a manager in the corporate sense, had worked for Vince McMahon for 10 years before he initiated the sexual relationship with her. And she was paid $1 million in 20 in two not 20 2006 to keep quiet about it. After this, Vince stepped down from being our CEO, and but he still stayed on in a creative capacity. Now, that leads us to Miss Grant. I didn't want to say her name. 2 days after WWE just closed their $10 billion deal with Netflix for 10 years, a lawsuit filled with 67 pages of disturbing details and accusation was filed. Um, Now, again, another trigger warning of trafficking and sexual assault. Grant alleged that McMahon recruited individuals um, to have intercourse with her. McMahon shared explicit media with um, one of his employees. We're not stating names. Um, to get him to sign a WWE contract, get him to sign a new contract with WWE, which he did in fact sign.
Mhm.
Um, Grant alleged that the misconduct continued until 2022 when Linda McMahon subsequently found out and threatened to divorce him. She was granted $3 million in a settlement, um, which she was only paid 1 million of. After the details of this lawsuit came out, Vince officially resigned from WWE in January of this year, January of 2024. Phew. All right.
That's a lot. Like one line of a page of details is bad enough, but 67 pages of stuff is just like, wow. It's just so much.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I
It is
read
available
some of,
online. We will not be linking it. If you would like
no,
to find it, please feel free to go find it on your own. We will link certain things. Don't get me wrong, but that is one of the things that
no,
we will not be linking. So if they're interested in it, Google it. It is readily available online.
100%. I did read some of it. Some of it. My stomach turned. Um, and I was like, oh, this
Mm.
is no. So again, that is why I kept it to what was readily available in the sources that I used, and not what I saw in the lawsuit. Just again, out of respect, Ms. Grant came forward, and this is also a difficult time for her, and I cannot imagine how difficult it must be to have her life be recounted by
With
that
commentary.
with commentary.
With
Yeah.
commentary. It's unfortunate that she went through those things, but what's even more disgusting is the commentary on the allegations.
Oh yeah.
It's just so unfortunate that this is what we were talking about earlier with the whole victim shaming and, well, you
Mhm.
did it for so long, what made you stop? You know, it's just like, it's so gross, and I just really wish people would stop commenting on things that they are not educated
Mhm.
enough to have a conversation about. Not
Mhm.
everything deserves a reaction. Not everything deserves a reaction. Her pain and struggle is not your content. That is not your social media clickbait. That is not your
Mhm.
tweet. Like, that is what is so disturbing to me, that people would turn this into a joke and humor. Again, someone suffering in pain is not your clickbait and is not your social media content.
That's your punchline.
It is not your joke. It is
Exactly.
Right.
it's just it's so disturbing to me. Just
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even trying to like spin narratives about like them trying to them choosing now as the opportune time for like monetary reasons or
mhm.
something like that. And it's like
Right.
there should be no discussion as to whatever the victim feels as though they should be
Mhm.
given for what they went through. That should not be something that any of us have any say in, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who went through it.
Right.
And and also I think that people need to understand that no amount of monetary gain is worth what they I'm sure they would rather have their life
Their
before this
peace.
traumatic and
Exactly.
triggering thing happened to
Exactly.
them than whatever money they get from this.
Mhm.
It's literally the least they can get.
That lady
It
probably can't even sleep at night. And not even
Right.
just because her phone's being blown up and her email and all of the things, literally just PTSD. This lady probably cannot sleep at night.
Yeah, it's
you,
trauma.
Mhm.
Trauma and have to
It's real
relive it
trauma.
yes,
by the lawsuit. Like,
And also just public conversation, you
yes.
know?
And then
support of
Vince
public.
has not gone down quietly. Let me tell y'all. Vince did
Oh,
not go down quietly. He did not
Yeah, you can
he did
sense
not
that.
resign and step away. It's like he resigned and picked up his Twitter fingers.
he refused. He refused until the bitter end to leave.
And then, like I said, even then he went down swinging. He didn't want to go down.
The joke among wrestling fans has always been you're gonna have to pry the WWE from Vince's cold dead hands.
Literally, they did.
Literally.
And
Ugh.
they had to.
Yeah.
Like you literally have to
Yeah.
pry this from Vince McMahon's cold dead hands. Alleged. It's karma. Alleged karma.
What do you
Much
always say?
trauma.
Two people gonna always come collect, the IRS and karma.
IRS and karma is
They gonna
always
come
going to
collect. They're going to
collect.
collect.
I always
Absolutely.
say that. But yes, and to have your trauma be turned into a punchline.
I hate it. I
Yeah,
hate it.
like the giggling, huh? Like, oh, this is really no. At the end of the day, the kink shaming has to end. It doesn't matter. It's not funny. Like
No.
this happened to this woman.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I've got the heavy stuff out of the way, I want to kind of open up the discussion to what's next for WWE in terms of Vince, because with Vince McMahon being so synonymous with pro wrestling, with Vince McMahon being essentially being pro wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
how does WWE move forward with not mentioning him? Because I mean, they've proven that they are doing quite well without his influence on anything.
Yes.
It's the best
And
product I've seen in a very long time. I think we all can admit that.
yes, fans have been clamoring for Vince to like, hey, at least step aside, at least hire more writers, at least listen to the writers that you hire.
Mm-hmm.
And now the product has definitely significantly changed. With now my other question is, how do you think Netflix will handle the Vince McMahon documentary with them just signing a $10 billion deal for 10 years with them? Do you think
I'm
they can?
very curious. I'm very curious to see how this Netflix documentary is going to go, just because based off like the little research that I've done so far, I know that this documentary was in works before a lot
Mm-hmm.
of this stuff kind of
Right.
came out and exploded. So if that's the case, it probably was very much detailing the life and trials of Vince McMahon and the things that he went through and how he overcame them to run a solid WWE. Obviously, we know that that's not the case. That's not the case at all. So I hope that they can really spend the latter half talking about and discussing, and hopefully, if the people who are involved in these things want to speak, are able to speak and release statements, really just let people know that definitively Vince McMahon is one, not a good man. Like that is what the takeaway needs to be from the end
Mm-hmm.
of that documentary. And two, WWE has no affiliation with him going forward. Those are like the
Correct.
two things that I'm looking for in the documentary, like a very clear line at the end.
But I need WWE to condemn 100%. Does this
Yeah.
taint the way you guys think of professional wrestling? Because
I think.
we've been fans for a while.
Mm-hmm. Um, if you look at sports as a whole, you look at football, you look at basketball, you look at baseball, there have always been issues with various owners doing not so great things. Um, it's unfortunate that Vince is who you think of when you think of wrestling. Like, despite what you may think of AEW and TNA and all of the things, when you think wrestling, you think of WWE, WWF, WWF, you think of Vince McMahon. I think that they are doing a decent job of navigating the space without mentioning him directly in that light. I think people have to also remember that there is currently an active lawsuit going. So there's only so much that can be said legally right now, regarding Vince, the allegations, the lawsuit, all of these things. Like, everyone was at Triple H for not answering a question at a presser. Triple H literally cannot comment on legal things. So I think there
Right.
needs to be a level of understanding with that as well. That
Mm-hmm.
yes, I would love to ask superstars all these great questions about the locker room and how they're handling it and all of these things, but it is ongoing investigations, an ongoing lawsuit. Only so much can be said.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that Netflix has to touch on it. They just can't go into a true deep dive into all of these things in this lawsuit
Right.
because it's a pending
It's
lawsuit.
ongoing.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I think it's like a 6 episodes they're doing with it. So I think that because it was shot like years in advance, I'm sorry, years ago, all of the things. So I think that it will still have like Vince McMahon on this pedestal and all of these things. But like we mentioned in our timeline, he's been doing wrong things since that we know of since '92, right? So I think that's going to be
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
incorporated, but more of the recent stuff might be towards the end and not as much because again pending lawsuit they legally cannot comment on these things. So I think that maybe hopefully they'll come back and do an episode 7 at the end. Once I mean, this isn't going to wrap up anytime soon. This whole thing hasn't even have
This
court
isn't
dates
the
and
end of the
things.
Vince doc.
This is not the end of
You
the Vince
know.
doc. I think at the end it's going to be a TBD, right? A to be continued. I'm sorry, TBC, to be continued. Um, because the can of worms is just opening. I think that there will still be more to come out regarding Vince and more to be said, but again, legally, you can't ask Triple H about these things because he's an employee of the WWE. There's an active lawsuit, and I think that PR matters too because you're going to have someone like The Rock, and you're going to have the Cenas who, while Cena's an employee again now, right? And so is The Rock because he's on the board of directors. So like these people that you're looking for these answers aren't going to give you the answers that you're looking for. You're going to get the Cody Rhodes PC version of whatever, right?
Mhm.
Who's gone through the media training. You're going to get those. You're going to get those answers. Um,
Yeah, and for sure.
it
And
is
it's
what it
important
is,
to note.
right? It is what it is.
It is important to
Yeah.
note that, and it's important to note that a lot of these wrestlers do have relationships with Vince McMahon. So
Mhm.
you also have to be sensitive of the fact that if I was friends with someone for years and never saw this coming, and I get a 67-page document with alleged that allegedly contains proof of alleged text messages that were sent
Mhm.
from a number that I can recognize,
Mhm.
I wouldn't know what to say. We talk about certain situations that happen with other heinous acts in wrestling where you're like, why? Like, while public support is probably not the best, but they're also handling and dealing with the fact that that's traumatic for them as well. Like,
Mhm.
if if I was in a workplace situation and I really enjoyed working for my boss, and it comes out that, oh, he's doing X, Y, and Z, I would be a little
You'd have to
traumatized.
process.
Like,
You'd have to have a
who
minute to
did
process, and
who did I let into my life?
absolutely,
Right.
you can't negate someone's experience because you
Mhm.
didn't experience it. That's not your experience with somebody, and that's
Mhm.
okay. But
Yeah.
there is alleged proof that this happened, so you can't ignore that claim because it didn't happen to you, right? So
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it does get dangerous with that. I
it
could
gets
think
very
with
dicey.
it gets very dicey, especially with certain wrestlers who have big fan bases coming out in public support of Vince even after being shown this alleged proof.
Mhm.
And it can't help the court of public opinion when it comes to, and we already know the court of public opinion, even in 2024, like, is it easier for victims to come out now and be believed? Yes. But is it
No,
really?
look at your timeline.
Because
No.
you also have that boys club. Well, why did it take you so long? Or even if you did the right thing, like that tennis law employee in 2006, it gets dismissed and thrown under the rug. She did
Mhm.
exactly what she's supposed to do. Rita Chatterton went to the authorities and did exactly what she was supposed to do.
Mm.
Um, and nothing
Well,
came of it. Nothing came of
yeah.
it. It was swept under the rug. Now, of course, I'm going to re-champion my story while this is being by it's being out and people are being believed. But it does get dangerous when you're like people who don't believe it or say, "Well, you can sit there for so long and then the money stop flowing." No, that's not how.
It
That's
works.
not how this works. That's not how sex trafficking works. That is also there is no consensual relationship. I want to put that out there. It is hard to, well, I'm not going to say that. Actually, I'm not going to say a bold statement like that. But when it is, the lines of consent are blurred when it is a person in a position of power and a
Mhm.
subordinate.
Mhm.
We are aware of that. That power dynamic matters. It is a factor. So instead of judging and saying, "Well, you wanted this," or pointing the finger and saying this, just know that things are complex and two things can be true at one time, and that does not negate the fact that these people were abused. They did not consent. These people were trafficked. That does not negate that. But yeah, I definitely think it gets a little dicey when you have people who show public support for people that are accused of really heinous crimes with
Yeah.
It's
no
okay
proof.
not to comment. Again, like I said earlier, you don't have to comment on everything. Not everything is
Hmm.
there for you to comment. Not every statement needs a response. And also, you don't
Everything
have to
needs public.
volunteer it. You don't even have to volunteer it. You don't have to open up your Twitter fingers and start tweeting about it. Like, you ain't gotta do that either.
Yeah.
It's okay just to. It's okay.
Think that moving forward it is important to show that WWE does condemn Vince McMahon and the actions taken by him. I think that is what could be next. Like I said, I think WWE is doing great without him. It's
Hmm.
been proven that he can do without. They said he would never sell the company. If he sold the company, they said he would never give up creative. They had to pry it away from him. But I think moving forward, WWE has a chance to create a new clean slate. I'm not saying erase Vince because it's
You
literally
can't.
impossible.
Impossible. It's impossible.
Literally impossible. You can't go on WWE Network. You can't go and that'll take years to scrub every existence of this man from like any pay-per-views, TV, anything.
He
You
was a
can't do
commentator at one point. I mean, like you saw him weekly. It's easy to erase since we're having this conversation, Chris Benoit, right? It's easy for you to go back in and blur and to remove those matches. It's hard for you to remove the owner of a company for 100 years. You know what I mean? Like you literally cannot go back and blur his face on every pay per view. He was a commentator on Raw for many years. It's hard for you to go scrub his comments from Raw and blur his face on Raw. Like it's
Yeah.
you have to move on. So I guess my biggest concern, or what I'm very curious about, is WWE's response to the Netflix documentary. What is going to be their statement after this drops? Because again, there's still that partnership. And this partnership existed before this document. I'm sure they knew this. They were interviewed for the documentary. They knew this documentary was
Mhm.
coming. So I'm very
Yeah.
curious to how WWE will respond after this. What will be like? Will they release a statement? Will they? And that's what I'm curious about. Is what will be WWE's response after Wednesday? What will be their response on Thursday or Wednesday afternoon?
or before it comes out.
Something they gotta attack you. You can't. It's one of those things that you can't ignore this. You shouldn't ignore this. I don't think they're going
Yeah.
to ignore it. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to have a nice a press release, something available on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at the absolute latest, probably Wednesday afternoon, because I guarantee you we're all gonna watch this on Wednesday. So I
Oh, for
guarantee
sure.
you by the time 3 p.m. rolls around, there's going to be a statement of some sorts. Guarantee it. They're not gonna ignore it.
Yeah, I would be shocked. I would be
Hmm.
shocked if they did.
But
I'm saying,
well, we shall see on Wednesday. I am going to watch the documentary.
Hmm.
I know that in January it'll be suggestion raw
Documentary.
documentary.
Yeah, wow.
It is so it's like they have to announce it, and I'm looking forward to see what they say. Um, hopefully they don't play it. They have to play it safe.
Oh no,
Just
they're going to. They're going to. They're a
they have.
multi-billion-dollar company. They're going to. But the thing about them telling the TKO is TKO can comment on these things because TKO essentially took off the trash.
Hmm.
So TKO, I hate to say looks like the good guy here, but they kind of look like the good guy here because they came in, they bought the company, and they're like, all right, we got to get him the fuck up out of here, and did. And did. So TKO kind of gets the opportunity to, I hate to say play hero because that sounds terrible, so please pardon that. But they kind of get the opportunity to be like, hey, we knew he wasn't shit, and we took
So
out the trash.
we got him up out of here. Yep.
Yeah,
They got
he's not here anymore. We're
immediately,
moving on. We've moved on. We've
damn
since
near
moved on.
TKO and
immediately, they
Slim.
got him up out of here. So,
Hmm.
TKO and Slim Jim.
oh, Slim Jim too.
Who would have known
Who'd have
Slim
known?
Jim
Who'd have thunk? Who'd have thunk?
that Slim Jim would lead to one of
I remember
WWE's
that.
longest standing
Macho
uh
Man had
yeah,
it. Hmm.
longest standing commercial and partner and sponsor. said he goes or we go.
We go.
And then what they said, all right, bro, he gotta go. I think
Oh,
they
what did they
said
say?
within like a
ASAP.
day, within like 12 hours, they were like, oh,
Yeah.
pull that immediately.
And WWE does not play about their sponsors. Remember the Snickers with the Fabulous Moolah?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
When her
They
stuff
said,
came
"Oh,
out,
we found that out." Snatchies, like we.
snatched
They
it
was like, "Oh, we're
immediately.
changing the name immediately." It was a 2-day affair.
Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, who got a Snickers commercial? Who? Mm-mm.
Nope.
Got him on the phone. Get him on the
So
phone.
it was like
Yeah.
they don't play about their money. So I
Yeah.
again, I'm excited. I'm not excited, but I'm looking forward to seeing how
The
they
pivot.
really
Mm-hmm.
they pivot from this. I think they can. Again, Vince has not been here in the capacity for almost 9 months at this point. Maybe did give us a laugh. We need
Big came to
Biggie on the
lighten the mood,
screen.
right?
Yeah,
Big
little
came to
smile,
lighten
Yes,
the
yeah.
man,
mood.
wow.
Came to lighten the mood. Hey, y'all.
Hi, man.
Heard y'all needed some
Yeah,
hugs. I'm here.
Yeah.
Heard y'all needed
Literally.
but so I think that concludes our show. Again, we will be mindful to include a list of resources in our description and our comments on Instagram. And thank you guys so much for joining us on this pretty pretty tough episode. All right, guys. So that is it. Don't forget to put down that lip gloss and pick up that ladder. And we will see you next week.
Have a great one.
Bye, guys.